Hi, I'm Bill Goodykoontz. I'm filling in for Brad Cesmat, and our next guest is somebody that I think probably a few of you have heard of. This is Jimmy Kimmel, who hosts Jimmy Kimmel Live, and somebody I've known a little bit for quite a while. How are you, Jimmy?
Well, Brad, where's Brad? What's going on? I thought I was calling him for Brad.
I was just thinking that, isn't that the worst thing? Like if you listen to, especially sports talk radio, when you tune in and like Dan Patrick's on vacation or something?
Yeah, there's always a sense of loss.
It's like all of a sudden, I will let the kids watch TV for a while. I should say that I first met you when you were still doing the Man Show and I was a TV critic. And I introduced myself to you, and you said, hey, when I was at Arizona State, I used to read your columns. And, of course, immediately I was flattered. And following that, all of a sudden it was like, oh, my God, am I that old?
Well, your name is very hard to forget also. It sounds fictional.
Well, that's what people ask me, did you make it up? And it's like, if I made it up, would I make this up?
Yeah, if you made it up, you'd probably be writing your own version of the Game of Thrones novel.
Maybe I should use my initials or something. Anyway, as I say, I've known you for a while, before you were even the big star that you are now. And I've always wondered this. I wondered this about really successful people now. You're rich, you're famous, you hang out with cool people. You spent some time at Arizona State. When you were there, and we've talked before about your love of Letterman and that sort of thing, and you had goals and stuff, but did you ever have any inkling that you would be doing this kind of thing?
No, I mean, when I went to Arizona State, really my goal was to get a job in radio so I could drop out of college. That was my goal, is to get out of my parents' house. And that's what happened. I wound up working at, I wasn't even working there. I was just calling in, doing characters for KZZP, which was the big FM station at the time. And there were guys named Mike and Kent who did the afternoon show there. And they took a liking to me. And Mike left to go do mornings in Tucson, and Kent was left behind. And he and I decided that we wanted to do a show together. So we made a demo tape at a recording studio on Camelback, and somebody, we sent it to someone in Seattle, and they hired us to do mornings at a station called KZOK.
So you succeeded in your goal of dropping out of college.
Yeah, that was really the only goal I've ever achieved. The rest all just happened accidentally.
This is like one of those things, like my kids love you, by the way, and they're going to hear this thing. It's like, well, there's him, there's Bill Gates, there's Steve Jobs, and it's like, no, that's okay.
Yeah, just show them the faces of the hundreds of thousands of other people who didn't graduate college, who are now not running their own companies. It's definitely the exception.
Or their own TV show. I was thinking about, what to talk to you about. And you obviously, you are a huge fan, or were a huge fan of David Letterman, as a bunch of us were. And we've talked about this a little before. You did a little more with it than the rest of us, I would say. And I should say also that I thought, for people who follow TV, they know what a big deal this was, that you ran a repeat episode during May Sweeps against, Letterman's last show. But you've gotten to this place now where all of a sudden, I've always thought that you were the clear successor to Letterman, because you've actually kind of changed the genre some, and not many people do that. But you're kind of like the old hand here now, and you're not like an old guy. What's that like? Late nights really changed.
It's funny, I didn't really feel old until 11 months ago when my daughter was born, and now she wakes up at like 6:10 in the morning. I'm definitely moving a little bit more slowly, but I'm still as kind of, I'm crazy. I work very hard. I'm up in the morning looking through the news, trying to figure out what we're going to do, and I'm up very late writing scripts and working on things. And I think that when I lose that zeal, that's when I'll probably decide to stop doing this. I haven't, unfortunately for my wife, I haven't lost that zeal yet. I'm still a maniac when it comes to. I enjoy the process of seeing something that day and making a bit about it that's on the show that night. It's something that I did in radio, and it's something that you don't have the opportunity to do in any other area of television. It's really the only job in television where you can turn something around so quickly, and that's fun for me. I greatly prefer that to spending 8 months writing a script and refining it and then shooting it and putting it on the air a season later. I mean, it's much better, much more fun for me.
I think that I think a lot of us who work in newspapers before, one of the good things about the decline of newspapers is the rise of blogging and that sort of thing. And once that you get sort of hooked on that immediacy of having a platform and a voice like what you're talking to, that's hard to do without.
It is, and also I have this kind of philosophy that 90% is good enough, and I learned that in radio when you're doing 5 shows a day and the shows are 5.5 hours long, that if you spend too much time working on one thing, it comes at the expense of other things. So that last 10%, it's almost like being a home contractor. You know how they skip out on you before the job is finished? That's what I do every day.
Well, that's good. It's good that you're putting in just enough effort. No,
exactly.
You seriously, you have, I think, in a way that some other hosts, and I would say, by the way, late night is in pretty good shape all the way around right now. I think that there's been an infusion of younger people, but I think that one of the things that that's really helped you is you figured out fairly early on how to use the internet and the power of viral video and that sort of thing. At what point did you realize, hey, this is, guys, we gotta pay some attention to this. We gotta use this.
Well, first of all, I think you're giving me too much credit by saying I figured it out. I really didn't figure it out. What happened was we put videos on, and suddenly people started posting them on their YouTube channels, and we saw that, I think the first really, really big viral video for us on the talk show was the Matt Damon, video that my ex-girlfriend Sarah Silverman made, and that video, we don't even know how many views it got because so many people posted it, and there were some of them had 30 million. I mean, it was crazy, and we decided that it was better if we consolidated because people were putting their ads in front of it and really making kind of presenting it in a way that we didn't want it presented. So we decided to start our own YouTube channel. But I will tell you, the first viral video that I was ever involved with came during the Man Show. And we had this little boy who we sometimes put in like a Girl Scout outfit and have him sell beer instead of cookies outside of supermarkets.
Yes.
And that became a viral video that people used to email to each other. And it's one of the first viral videos I ever remember. And I remember, that 14.4 dial-up, I'd get this huge file. I'd be like, what is this? Somebody sending me my own video saying, hey, look at this. Yeah, that's from my show, jerk. And then when we did Crank Yankers, these phone calls that we would make, this is a show we did on Comedy Central, became viral audio files that people used to share. And so there were a bunch of different calls, especially there was one that Wanda Sykes did, and there was one that Tracy Morgan did that made their way around the internet via email. And this kind of idea, I think that it really I made an impression on me all the way back then.
Did you? But I don't think you say I'm giving you too much credit. I don't think you're giving yourself enough, because I think that what happened then was when other networks saw the success you guys were having with it, they glommed onto it too, as they eventually would have. But I mean, there's something to be said for getting there first, no matter how you got there.
Yeah, well, nobody really remembers, except for you, Bill. You're the only one who remembers it. Our very first show, we showed a viral video. There was this guy who looked like he was 11 years old. His name's Andy Milanakis, who sat there with a guitar in his room. It was the night of the Super Bowl, and he strummed this guitar badly and just kept saying, "The Super Bowl is gay, the Super Bowl is gay," and it became a popular viral video, and I played it on the show that night, and that had to be the first time a YouTube video was shown on network television. I'd be surprised if it had happened before that.
We're going to get the hook here in a minute, but a couple of things I've always wondered: who's your best guest? Who's your favorite guest you've ever had?
That's a tough one. The person, though, that there are a few people that come to mind immediately. Charles Barkley is definitely one of them. He's so great. I mean,
he's so smart. When I used to work in sports, and you'd get in there, just sit in the locker room with the Suns, the way his comedy mind works is like he's like a real comic. He
really is. Consistently, I mean, he's a guy that I have to do no work with whatsoever. I go out there and I'm 100% certain that he's going to be not just funny but interesting also. And it is funny because sometimes before he's on the show, his handlers or whomever, people from TBS are like, hey, don't ask him about gambling and let's not talk about drinking. And I'm like, oh, really? And then the first thing he comes right out and starts talking about gambling and drinking.
I love it when the person himself like flies way over the head of the publicist.
Oh, almost 80% of the time, the celebrity has no idea what their publicist is saying that they don't want discussed, and it's almost always a surprise.
I know. I talk to a lot of movie stars and directors and stuff for my regular job, and it happens, as you say, almost all the time. They're the ones who bring up the stuff that the publicists think they don't want to talk about.
If you want to be treated like a child for the rest of your life, the best way to do it is to become famous because people ask you if you're hungry all the time, and they tell you when a conversation is over and where you're going and what you're supposed to talk about and what's not appropriate to talk about. And it really is like being a child.
There are worse things, probably.
I guess so, yeah.
One more thing before you go. This is one that you won't want to answer. Who's the worst guest? And I don't mean like as a bad person. I mean just who's somebody that you always wanted and you got them and it didn't work out.
Well, I can't think of anybody I always wanted and got them and it didn't work out. I mean, people have asked this question. I had a very unpleasant conversation with Vivica A. Fox on my show once. But, really the worst guests are the guests who don't know why they're there and they don't know the show or me, or sometimes they're not from this country and they don't understand the genre and they give you one word answers and the game is you're supposed to come out and you're supposed to let the audience get to know you, maybe tell an interesting story or two, at the very least expand on the answers to the questions that are presented to you. And some of them don't do that. You just kind of sit there and stare at each other. And that's where I am always grateful for my radio experience because I'm not afraid of silence. And in fact, some part of me takes a perverse pleasure in sitting there and staring silently at someone in front of a group of 150 people. And so those are the people that are worst. And generally, here's how it goes. After the show, I'll say, let's not invite that person back. And everybody go, yeah, we want to invite that person back. And then 18 months later, I'll see their name on the schedule again. I'll go, what is this person doing here? Well, so everyone ignores me at work.
The beauty with your show, though, is like I think a lot of times if things start to get uncomfortable, you think it's a bit,
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because last night on our show, we showed a clip of Transparent, the show Jeffrey Tambor stars in, and he plays a transgendered man. He transitions into a woman, and the clip we showed was a very serious clip, but the audience didn't know the show and they didn't understand, so they see Jeffrey Tambor in a wig and a dress, and he's having what they don't realize is a serious conversation with his daughter on the show, and the audience is laughing. And in rehearsal, I said, what happens if the audience laughs at this? And sure enough, they were laughing at it, but they figured it out just a little bit too late.
Well, we are going to get the hook here now. I know you've got to go. You do have a lot of experience in radio. You got any advice for me here for the rest of the day?
Let's see. It is a sports station. You might want to talk about sports a little bit.
Okay. Favorite sports movie of all time?
Oh, boy. Greatest sports movie of all time. I would have to say Fast Break starring Gabe Kaplan. I love that movie.
Not the Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. I'll go with North Dallas 40. How about that?
Okay, that's a good one, too.
Hey, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for doing this.
All right, bye.
We're on your mobile phone and tablet at sports360az.com.